two things, because there's nothing Ripple could do to stop Russia from using XRP in terms of payments. But I mean, Ripple wouldn't necessarily have to work with Russia. I think that kind of puts this thing in like kind of a weird scenario in which we already know Ripple's been doing a lot of work with India and the banks in Brazil. And you mentioned the BRICS nations earlier, and those are two major players. And the last one we have is Russia. And then you have the US government going after Ripple, while Ripple is constantly making all these massive partnerships all over the world. And it does kind of put us in a weird place where we all see what Ripple's doing to disrupt Swift. The US is weaponizing Swift in this issue right here, and it seems to me like it's going to push a lot of these countries to Ripple, but like you said, that's not necessarily the greatest thing in terms of the problems Ripple is already having in the US.
Yeah, so it could be bad for us. And the thing a lot of people kind of forget historically is that corporations and big money go to war differently than the layman people, the rest of us, right? So in World War II, Ford Motor Company was manufacturing the majority of the half-track armored vehicles for the Nazi Party for Germany. And when the U.S. bombed out the Ford Motor Company factories in Germany, Ford sued the U.S. government for destruction of those factories that were in Germany during the war, and Ford won. So that's a distinction that we have to understand, is that international businesses and large corporations do not play on the same playing field that we do.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and I didn't know that. Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting, and it's kind of funny, like this whole Russia thing really put the Swift system like front and center, where I'd never seen so many of my friends talking about the Swift system before, and here I was running an
Yeah,
XRP channel where I'm constantly talking about Swift, and I'm just like, oh, funny that this is suddenly front and center.
exactly. Yeah, the average American has never heard of Swift.
And it's
And here it
crazy
is.
too, because the average American, you're right, has never heard of Swift, and then you look at the volumes of money Swift does, and how many transactions a day, and how much money flows over this outdated banking system, and then you're just like, wait, there's a technology right now working to completely replace and upgrade this system, and it kind of blows your mind. Well, because the little it's talked about would make you think like, oh, it's just some small thing, like it Swift, like you've never heard about it, it's not that important. But I mean, realistically, it's the most important technology currently in the banking system.
And that's kind of like BlackRock, which most people don't understand. BlackRock is now actually running our treasury when the treasury reabsorbed the Fed. And that was a bill in, it was 27 March 2020 under Donald Trump, that during that bill, basically the treasury and the Fed merged, and that is under asset management of BlackRock. And BlackRock themselves just launched or applied for a Bitcoin ETF. And people don't necessarily see those transactions or understand them. You know, BlackRock manages about $9 trillion in assets annually.
So yeah, two things kind of there. One, it's kind of interesting. You like you said, BlackRock, this massive custodian, by far the biggest one in the world. I think that at one point they were custodying, I think it was 1/3 or 2/3 of the world assets or something like that. No one ever talks about them. We have Swift, the biggest money transmitter interbank by miles, like it's not even close. No one ever talks about them. And then we have this whole crypto thing, all these different coins rising up. You have Ripple and XRP, and it seems like that's the black sheep that no one ever talks about. I think a lot of people get sucked in by the media headlines, what's on CNBC, what's being talked about, but I mean, I feel like it's classic US history to hide these game-changing innovations from the people, because they don't want everyone to know about these things going behind the scenes. If you have XRP, a token that anyone can buy, they're obviously not going to broadcast it to the masses and say, hey, before we put everything in place, everyone go rush into this digital asset that's going to change the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also I live by another rule that is the majority is always wrong. I think it was Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain said, if you find yourself on the side of the majority, you need to stop and reassess, right? So anytime in history where the majority of the public has agreed on something, they're almost always factually wrong. And really what it is it's one or two people's opinion that has been pushed through the media, and it becomes the popular opinion, and it's never really very well thought out.
Yeah, and I agree. And it's so like the media is like, I mean, it's a diversion. I mean, anything that goes on to big media is completely planned, and it's all put there because that's what we all see. So it's all like it's all programming to say, "Hey, look at this, don't look here." And it just completely goes into the whole why Bitcoin and things like Doge and Ethereum, they're like good technologies, and they're going to change the way the world works, but they're not going to be the fundamental game changers that are going to be the real difference makers in a future financial system that's built into the internet. And it makes so much sense that if the media and like the powers who are really helping this transition go through, if they wanted to do this in a way where they're not hyping up the critical infrastructure that's going to be used, they would obviously push Bitcoin, push things like Doge to the masses, because those are kind of the things that would almost like, hey, look here, don't look here kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that, I guarantee that's what Elon Musk did with Doge. You know, he pushed Doge to the masses, and he knows that increases the awareness of Bitcoin, as Tesla was buying Bitcoin. So that's not even hidden, really. It's inadvertent.
No, I always kind of think too. I wonder like how much like if a lot of these higher level people, because I mean we know I've seen executives from Amazon going over to Ripple, executives from Uber going over to Ripple. I mean I'm sure multiple people on the Tesla team have a lot of experience working with Ripple. They all know about XRP. I kind of wonder if behind closed doors they have been told like, hey, like don't talk about this and this.
I guarantee it.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, for me, like I've kind of newer into like I feel like understanding more how like the world really works and how things happen behind closed doors. So it's for me sometimes thinking about that is like, is that just crazy speculation or does stuff like this happen? But the more I watch some of this play out, the more I'm kind of like, it doesn't make sense why they'd be ignoring this unless they were told don't talk about this.
Exactly. The truth lies in omission.
Have you seen Elon's recent tweets about his newest suit with the SEC in which he's talking about uncovering corruption at the agency?
It's almost like he's trying to bring attention to something inadvertently.
It seems like every single time there's an opportunity. We know earlier, about a year ago, Elon Musk had his whole I'm going to accept Bitcoin for Tesla, and then a month later said I'm not going to accept Bitcoin or accept Bitcoin for Teslas. And we talked about this on the channel where despite the fact that he never mentioned XRP, almost every single headline that week was saying Elon Musk promotes XRP by promoting more eco-friendly cryptocurrencies, but he never actually said that. He just made it clear, hey, we want to use cryptocurrency, but we think it's cool, but we want to use one that's energy efficient. And then suddenly this narrative about XRP was kind of created out of that. And it's almost like, obviously he didn't change his mind in those 2 weeks. Obviously he wasn't like, oh yeah, Bitcoin uses a lot of energy. There's clearly something more there. And that's kind of what we were talking about. Like, hey, he's really kind of pushing forward this XRP narrative.
Yeah, and he's definitely playing chess. And I don't remember if it was you I said this to before, but there's kind of a civil affairs way of uh, exuding influence on others. So basically, you don't lead the horse to water and make it drink. You get another horse to go up next to the first one and say, "I'm thirsty," and it walks to the water and it takes a drink. And that's exactly what's happening here. Is Elon Musk is not saying go buy XRP. He's saying we'd accept Bitcoin, except, oh, it's not very eco-friendly. He's saying, hey, look at Doge, but don't look at it, because really it's just a shit coin, and it's, you know, it's not really well managed.
Mm.
You know, hate the SEC and look for the corruption. Don't
Yeah.
look at XRP.
No, and I also saw another tweet thread in which he was specifically calling out Mark Andreessen, who I'm not that deep in this rabbit hole, but from what I understand, a lot of those guys were heavily involved in getting Ethereum their free pass. He's also, him and Jack Dorsey have said a lot about VC funders coming in. Specifically, we all know this, a lot of these people come back to Ethereum. So it's one of those things. It's like it's hard to just look at all this and constantly dismiss it all as a coincidence when it's becoming more and more obvious that he's specifically targeting these different things that all play directly into what we're watching.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't believe in coincidences, but even if it were, even if it was all just totally by accident, Elon Musk is still pointing the compass directly at XRP.